Board games, board games is what I'm talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here, there are some folk, none of whom is a joke. And over there, for you all, is the wonderful Alan Paul. And there is another person who's lovely too. Made many games, it is Matthew. Rita Model, designer from Germany, is the person under me right now. We'll talk about pitching in board games. It's what we're talking about. Pitching in board games. I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. It's his episode 363 of Busy Beats and Board Game Blether.
Good
and I'm
morning.
streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 37 days. And today I have Alan Paul, Matthew Dunstan, and Rita Model to chat about
Hello,
pitching
everybody.
board games.
Hello.
We have all done some of this. We have all successfully pitched games in the past. I assume we have all also unsuccessfully pitched games in the past.
Yeah, I think my record is more
Yes.
on the unsuccessful side than on the yeah, that's right. Yes,
So
we've all cried afterwards, haven't we?
I'm trying to think if I have. No, I have technically successfully pitched a game. Good. Okay, so I can be on my own panel. Excellent.
Well, you pitched one to me, Bez, so you know.
It wasn't technically a pitch. That's the thing. I don't consider
Was
that
it not
a pitch. Because I entered a just for those who don't know, I entered a game into a competition. It was called Yo Dog, I heard you like moving gnomes. So move a gnome to move a gnome to move a gnome to maybe remove a tile. And in this game, it was all about moving a gnome to then move a gnome, to then move a third gnome, and then if the second and third gnome matched in particular ways, you maybe removed a tile. And we are completely going to turn it onto its head. And rather than it being about, we were... Anyway, long story, but I don't consider that a pitch as such. Like, that was more entering a competition, which I guess we could talk about whether that is a pitch or not. Maybe.
I think there are some similarities, definitely, between the two things.
Almost any time you show a game off for whatever purpose, you're pitching in a way, aren't you? Or you might be pitching to players, well, rather than publishers, but you're pitching.
And also, I'm remembering actually, Alan, I'm sure I was part, I think, of the original test of that thing with Brett. We went to
that's right
to Milton Keynes or something, and I was helping judge or I don't know, playtest the initial kind of judging round.
Yes, with Cara. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think Brett was there probably as well. Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah. It was good.
You're muted.
Yes, it was you, Matthew, Brett, Cara, and Alan, but you played it as a two-player game because it was really a two-player game.
We originally, I think you pitched it. Well, you presented it as a four-player originally, and then we all said, "Hang on a minute, this doesn't feel like a four-player. Let's try a two-player," and it worked really, really, really well as a two-player game. I think that was something like that, something strange. I think.
I'm sure there was a Brett, some typical Brett kind of brusqueness or whatever. Like, it was probably like, this is.
I think Brett said something like, "This isn't really a four-player game at all, is it? It's a two-player game." And so we all thought, well, let's try it as two-player, and it worked really very, very well.
Yeah,
I think you pitched it originally as a four-player in the competition because I suspect you thought that maybe we wanted to have multiplayer games and that two-player games weren't going to be as popular for the competition. But as it happens, that wasn't really the case.
I think it
so.
Might
anyway, that's ancient history.
It is quite a long time ago. I want to say hello to Nicholas Straccia. It is lovely to see you. And I've done a terrible job sometimes of asking people to introduce themselves. So can I ask everyone, going clockwise, starting with Alan Paul, to talk briefly about themselves? What's your experience with pitching? And maybe you can talk about pitching on both sides of the equation. And yeah, you don't have to give the full history right now, but just if people want to know a wee bit more about you.
I'm Alan Paul, and I've been designing games for a very long time. I think I started pitching back in the 1980s, and successfully pitched in 1983 a game which only sold a few hundred copies. So what did the publishers know? But I'm also the main designer for Surprise Dare Games, and as a publisher, we do get people sending us or pitching to us in various ways. So I'm on both sides of the table, so to speak. And I would say that when we started, we had very mixed success in Surprise Dare Games, and that was largely because most of the companies that we were pitching to were German companies. We had never done it before. This is when we started Surprise Dare. This is back in 2001, I think. We hadn't done this before. Well, I'd pitched in the 80s, but that was a long time ago, and it was War Games. It was different. And so we went to our first Essen. We did a lot of pitching at our first Essen in 2002, 2003, something like that. And it was primarily to German companies. And although the market was expanding then, the German companies tend to have relatively few slots for games. We were completely unknown. We had no experience of how to do it. So we were very much learning while doing. And we learned a lot by failing a lot. And that's how we learn, really. And I think now we're a lot better at pitching now. So hopefully we can share some of that.
I think that's probably true of everyone, just learning by occasionally failing and trying to do the best with what you can with the opportunities that you have. Matthew, are you able to chat a wee bit about yourself?
Yeah. I'm Matt Dunstan, designer, tabletop game designer. I did my first pitches at I entered a game competition in 2011 or something like that, but I also went to Essen, and I did my first pitches in 2012. Probably since then, I don't know. I've probably had something like 150 to 200 pitches, I would guess, probably over the last decade or 8 years or something like that. Mainly at conventions, although now, obviously pitching's done a little bit differently, over email, things like that. And yeah, some percentage of them have been successful in terms of signing a game. Obviously not all of them. So yeah, with all of this, and I'm sure we'll get onto that, there's a certain amount of kind of persistence and endurance to the sport of pitching that you have to kind of be ready for, I think. Although, of course, I signed my first game not actually from a pitch, so that was sort of the funny thing. It came through a competition, and I didn't even have any contact with the publisher before they offered me a contract. So yeah, it sometimes it can still be a bit strange how everything works out. But yeah, so that's me.
That's interesting, because I think my first signing of a game wasn't a pitch either, as it happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit strange. Very, very nice email to get from Days of Wonder in the middle, from nowhere, saying they'd like to publish a game. But yeah, not for everyone, I guess.
I mean, I think this is a kind of, I guess, maybe we can get into how our first successfully pitched game went. But Rita, can you talk a wee bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Rita Moldl. I'm also a board game designer from Germany, and I started pitching. Well, I had my first pitch in, I think it was 2016, but it wasn't a real pitch. It was like, hey, I show you a game, but for me it was not a pitch. So maybe I started in 2017, but I don't know exactly the date. Yeah, and I also had a lot of bad experiences about pitching.
Every pitch is a learning experience.
But I would say I think it was my fourth pitch. It was in Essen, and I had an appointment with Amigo Games and with Christian Hildenbrand. I don't know if you know him. So greetings from you. So that was a very important experience to me, because I showed him, I think it was 3 games or something like that. And then he talked to me. So in Germany, we would say das Wort zum Sonntag. It's like giving you a very important speech. So he gave me a speech. and that was so it was disappointing, because it say, hey, your games are not good, and there are a lot of designers pitching games for 10 years and don't even publish a game, and it's so hard, the business is so hard, and it's very hard to get a game published, and so on. And after this appointment, it was a decision. Either, okay, this is not my way, I stop designing, or I show you I can publish a game. And I took that way. And we are good friends now. So I didn't publish a game at Amigo yet, but on other games. But he's still a good friend, and we can have very good talks. And yeah, this was a very important experience to me.
It seems an interesting contrast to we used to meet with Uwe Molter at Amigo, who is, I think, one of the old, I think he's actually retired now. I think he's one of the older kind of, and one of the meetings was literally a, I don't know what X word sentence, which is, there is nothing new here. That was it.
Yeah.
So at least Christian took the, even if it was still a discouraging message, he took the time to, he was impassioned enough to, get you fired up, which was just... I
think it was my also my way to go there, that he decided to give me a speech because of it. Hey, here I am, here my games, yes. and yeah.
I think
yeah.
So I think the best rejection I had when doing a pitch was we quite like the theme, but we don't like any of what you've done with it. So don't like the mechanics, don't like the way you've done the game and the game flow or anything like that. But we do like the theme.
You've ruined a perfectly good theme.
Yeah,
Alan.
exactly.
Well
done. Yeah. That was it. That was
quite an achievement. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Tut, tut, tut.
Yeah,
what was the theme? Did you ever do anything else with it?
This was a circus theme we had. It was a circus theme. Yeah,
so there's at least one publisher there that likes the circus theme.
There's a bit more. I mean, there's a bit more of a story behind that game, but that's probably for later.
And if people don't know, my first published game, Yogi, wasn't actually pitched by me. It was all shouts out to Dave Cousins, amazing person, North and South Games, self-published. Did some pitching as well, because Dave stopped self-publishing because it was very much done as a hobby, and then went to Essen and said, okay, this is going to be my last Essen, it's no longer fun. I was kind of piggybacking off Dave the last couple of times that Dave went to Essen. Dave was kind enough to show the game to some companies, and Jigmick being one of them. So frankly, it was a lot of fortune. I was fortunate that, you know, it was a good game, and also that Dave was very kind and showed it to Gigamic, and then they basically came back and said, you know what, we would like this. This is a contract that we're willing to offer. And then they waited several months for me to say, hey, actually, there's this other company. Would you mind if I waited for them? And then I ended up going with Gigamic anyway. Anyway, that's the abridged story. But for other games, I've not pitched anything that has been published yet. We talked about whether a competition is a pitch, but then I was like, you know what? I did play Seize the Power, which I have been paid for. And so that was... It's different. Like, there's definitely different situations of pitching, and I think it will be important to get into that. Like how sometimes you're pitching with someone you know, sometimes you're pitching with someone you don't know, sometimes you're actually pitching and it's really just a competition. But then when you're doing something like, I guess nowadays, the Cardboard Edison competition or the board game workshop competition, and then there's going to be maybe a publisher seeing that. And I wouldn't say to enter those competitions just for thinking this is my pitching, but you know, it can happen, and there's always that potential of someone seeing this and saying, oh, I'm interested in this. On the other side of the fence, I have definitely been involved in deciding which people get some amounts of money and which games are rejected on the parts of Alley Cat Games, when I used to be working in a variety of roles as developer and also helping take some games on. But yeah, one of the games that I actually pushed for an increase in the anyway, actually I'm not going to get into that. One of the games I was going to say just hasn't been released yet, and I'm quite curious to know what's happened to it. But anyway, that is what we're all up to. And let's talk about recent highlights. We're going to have a wee quick 5-10 minute breaks where we talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So I've not managed to play any non-digital games, I would say, over the past day. I took the day off. I had a lovely chat with Scott and Harley about game books. That was really enjoyable, a very philosophical discussion, and we decided that about 2.7 or 3 or 2 to 10 number of choices, depending on who you ask, is appropriate. Yeah, it was very gut reaction, honestly. That's probably the least useful. But sometimes it's good to just have a stab at these things, even if you're like, yeah, that may or may not be correct. I had a lovely walk with a friend, cycled over, walked around, cycled back. That felt like I'd done a good bit of exercise. Legs slightly tired, not going to lie. Played a lot of video games. I also played the digital implementation of Roots. I don't know if any of you three have played either the physical or digital version of this. I've just gotten... I'm making my way through the tutorial still. One thing did slightly annoy me. There was a bug at one point where there was a message on the screen that wouldn't go away, and so I was missing all the messages that came underneath it, if you know what I mean. So I had to quit and then restart, but then it was okay. And there was one other thing that slightly annoyed me, where it said, hey, now that you've learnt about the cat and the Irie, would you like to have a wee practice match? And it was either yes or no. I couldn't say not just now because I actually want to go to bed. And I said no, and then I looked around to say, okay, when I actually want to play this practice match, how do I get into it? And it wasn't clear at all. So I think video game designers, if you have do you want to do this, yes or no, please have a maybe later option. Or maybe I should have just clicked yes and then it would have saved it. So I don't know, but I'm disappointed because I just wanted to say no because I was going to bed right then. I wasn't against having this private... Anyway, but I had a lot of fun with that. I also played a completely digital game called Planets of the Eyes, which takes about 2 hours to play through. You are a little robot, crash landing, beautiful scenery, and I just thought the music and everything, the atmosphere was brilliant. And it made me think, board games, we're not using much soundscape. we don't have the reaction. Just there's a lot of things that you can do digitally there. That's, I guess, you can do arguably with something like Chronicles of Crime, but you can't do with more traditional things. But anyway, it was a lovely game, Planets of the Eyes. And if you like platformers, if you like slightly tricky things, if you like nice things, and hello, Games by Manual. I hope that you're generally well. Hello, Idol Michael. I hope you are generally well. And and thank you, Rita, for following me. And Alan, what have you been up to recently?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Had an absolutely delicious Moroccan lamb that Charlie cooked for yesterday. So that was a very good highlight. And also on the food front, I have printed out the recipe that Bez gave us the other day. When was it? 2 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago? And I'm going to cook this lamb with rhubarb. So that's going to cook that in the next week. I'll let you know how that goes. So that was good. Games-wise, well, one thing we're doing at the moment with Dave Mortimer and Rob Harper is we are preparing our Snails and Grails co-design preparing for pitching to a company. I think Dave's already partially pitched it, but we're sending them some rules and a guide to how to play. So that's been fun, getting that sorted out. What else have I been doing? Watching Band of Brothers. So when my eyes and brain get to the stage where I can't actually do things on the computer, I do a completely different thing and watch a different type of digital and watch Band of Brothers on the TV. So that's been fun. And I've been playing Command Ops 2 on Steam, which is a World War II, very complicated tactical game, which I think most people here would not be desperately interested in. But it's a very complicated World War II, really fun game. But I'm on the tutorial, a 5-day scenario on the tutorial, and I've done 1 day, and it's probably taken me about 30 hours or so, something like that. So I'm a fifth of the way through the tutorial, and it's taken. Yeah,
so the tutorial takes longer than an actual day. Is that?
Well, you can do it several times over and over until you get more or less right. Learning it and reading the rules. You have to read the rules for this thing. It's sufficiently complicated that you do have to read the rules, or you literally don't know what you're doing. But it's fun.
Wow.
So that's what I've been doing.
Alan, I don't know if actually I'll tell you after some people might be. I mentioned you very briefly in my last Games Night on Earth as someone who might be willing to play this exceedingly long multi-month game with me, because I was like, who do I know who might be? And anyway, Matthew, what's been some of your recent highlights?
Yeah, well, I haven't. I got a huge box of games actually during the our last stream altogether. It arrived, so I've been sort of delving through all those games over the last 2 weeks, which have included, we got Micro Macro, which has been really cool to try out. It's sort of very enjoyable kind of Where's Wally kind of deductive kind of puzzle, which we've been really enjoying. And I got Gluck Auf, the card game, which has also been a lot of fun. A Kramer and Kiesling game, very elegant and streamlined and very nice. Trails of Tucana, Lorenzo El Magnifico, and generally, actually, we've been really lucky. They've all been good games. I think we're like 6 out of 7 we've really enjoyed. So that's always a nice thing when you buy some new games.
So talking about Micro Macro, so now it is, so in German, every YouTuber and blogger are making videos about Spiel des Jahres, and Micro Macro could win. I think it will. I also think it will win.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm not. I suspect there are some probably, and Rita, you'll probably be more up with it, because there are also other games usually of that lighter thing in Germany that might not have escaped out necessarily yet into sort of international world. But yeah,
especially not now. Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like an easy win, I would say. Even though you could, I mean, who knows if you want to get into this argument of like, is something a game or not, etc. And you know, and I don't really care so much, but it is interesting that it is pushing it really far, far, far close to this line of like, you know, it is literally a Where's Wally kind of book, you know, thing almost. I mean, there is more than that, so I'm happy because there is some interesting deductive kind of. It's hard to say until you play it, but actually there is much more than just kind of like spot a person, you know, and it's not. It's something more than that, and it's quite clever. But it is interesting that you know, it wasn't so, you know, like it's a far cry even from something like Azul, right? You know, in terms of what that overall thing is. Anyway, but apart from that, oh, sorry, you go first.
Oh no, I was just going to say it definitely seems like it's great to reward these things that are pushing the boundaries a little bit more. And also a quick hello to Alexa Duncan. Thank you very much for joining in. We're talking about pitching board games and also hello to Jay Foolsguard. So yep, Matthew, Rita, you were saying.
No, I mean not much. Apart from that, I've almost finished my addiction to Stardew Valley. I've pretty much 100 hours afterwards. I've pretty much finished the game. I mean, it's kind of a game you can never finish, but I think I've done most of the stuff. There's a few little things.
So that's a third. That's a third. So I've only done a third of what you've done on that game. With my command.
Well, I'm done. You know, like you're still in the training. You're still in training mode.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's it for me. It's been a good couple of weeks of gaming.
Yeah, so I think there's a difference in the time scales of the games that some people like to play, is what I'm sensing. And hello, Drawn Onward. It is lovely to have you join us. Thank you very much. Rita, what have been some of your recent highlights? And if anyone in the comments wants to share their recent highlights or get some questionably quick questions prepared.
So I have two highlights. The first highlight was last week. There was my birthday, and I couldn't meet persons in real. So I made an online party on YouTube, and it was very fun. And I did the podcast with my podcast friend, and we played live board games with the chat, and people won a lot of board games. So they won 8 board games, also 2 clasks and so on. So it was really fun. You can also watch it on YouTube. And my second highlight was that Council of 12, my next game, went online, and we now have over 500 supporters. And so it's gonna be produced. I don't know how to say.
Did you say it's being crowdfunded? Sorry, do you mean? Really,
yeah, it's crowdfunded. It's crowdfunded. It's still on, I think, 15 days or something like that. But I'm very happy with it, and yeah.
Maybe there's some way we can share it in the chat so that
yeah, of course. So I can give you the link.
Yes, if you put the link to that, then hello, Uli. It is lovely to see you from Spielworks, who just is popping by. It's lovely to have you. And okay, that's a question for Uli. So everyone here is a game developer. Yeah, so traditional board games, not digital games, but we're all game designers, and we all have some experience pitching games. And Alan and I. And Matthew, do you have any experience taking pictures, would you say, Matthew?
Yeah, a little bit. I've done some judging with the Cardboard Edison and things like that. So, yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about. And sorry, Alan, I saw that you put a link there. What's that? But if anyone wants to check out Council of 12, the video, then check that out. And so, yeah, let's get started with our penultimate regular section, which is questionably quick questions. If anyone has any questions right now, then please ask them. I'm going to say, what time is it? Where are you? Here it is 10:29. I am in London, UK. Matthew.
I'm in Prague, Czech Republic. It's 11:29, and a little bit of sun.
I am near Munich, and it's 11:29.
I am in Warboys, Huntingdonshire, and it's 10:30, and I'm upstairs, and it's windy. It's definitely windy, and I went out to get rid of some rubbish, and it was really cold as well. So come on, May, buck up.
It's been very cold here generally too. Actually, yeah. Definitely not spring at all.
Okay, so we have been asked by Jay Foolsguard, when did you last touch a living tree? And I actually did this yesterday. I took a photo. I should probably put this up somewhere to share this. It looked really weird. It looks like there was some mushroom growing on the tree. And I was thinking, oh, is that mushroom? Is it not? And then I touched it, and it was really hard. And it wasn't a mushroom at all. I was trying to work out what is it. And I might actually ask Karen on Twitter, Game Biologist, what it is. Maybe Karen will know. But yeah, it was very hard. I don't know if it was a fungal growth as part of the tree, but then I was trying to pry it to, press it with the keys because my nails weren't. I wasn't trying to harm the tree. I was just trying to work out what's going on here. Is this a parasite? Is this? Yeah. Anyway, so that is the last time I touched a tree. What's about you, Matthew?
We were very tree adjacent on the 1st of May, and you have to go and seek out a cherry tree on the 1st of May in the Czech Republic. It's a tradition. So to the cherry blossom and all this sort of thing. So we probably touched a tree that day, although or we were extremely close. But yeah, not so much.
And so maybe not actually touching a tree. What about you, Rita? Can you remember a time you last touched a tree?
Maybe it was yesterday, but I don't know. So because every day I go for a walk with my dog, and sometimes there are trees, and I have to throw them.
Get them out of the way.
Yeah. Maybe it was yesterday, but I couldn't say. So I'm living in a very natural area here, so trees are very everywhere. So I don't know.
Nice. And what about you, Alan?
Yeah, probably in the last 2 or 3 days, because we're in the country here. We're on the outskirts of Warboys, and so we've got trees all around. In fact, we've got trees in the garden. So,
but do you touch them, Alan? Do you touch them?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We go and look at them and look at the blossom, and maybe
I love touching the blossoms and the leaves and the softer bits.
Yeah. Some of our
Just with the back
trees
of the
are
hand, reminding you.
Some of our trees lean over a bit, so we're kind of sometimes pulling them back straight and tying them up. They're quite young trees. So yeah, frequently we are touching trees. Yes, which is good. Definitely. In fact, we've got a tree which was here before we moved here 6 years ago. Or was it 7 years ago now? Anyway, it's a rocket apple tree, or at least that's what we call it, and it's got masses of blossom. It's one of these apple trees which it basically is quite narrow, and it goes up probably 12 feet or so, something like that.
Wow.
And it's covered in blossom, so we are going to get just dozens and dozens of kilos of apples off that tree, and they're eating apples as well, so that's going to be good. Looking forward to that.
And I'm going to call this next one the last questionably quick question. Alex, I agree that it does feel like it is just cold everywhere. Also, I'm sure there's parts of the world where that's not true, but certainly a lot of people would like it to be a wee bit warmer. Drawn onwards, saying you've not been on the other side. I'm trying to, not sure if I know who you are, but that does sound like a lovely experience, being the person who tries out and learns the sent-in prototypes for the publisher. And I've got a quick question from Drawn Onward, which is, which game is physically closest to you right now? Disappointingly, it's not a game I will have to lift this laptop to get access to any of them, because it's a box. Sorry about this. Actually, they are all kind of wrapped up, but it's a bunch of dice and ink stock. So, yeah, there's a big box. I'm not even Dice and Ink, the anthology of Roll and Write. I've got 3 big boxes, and one of the boxes is literally right here underneath the laptop, and it's got all the books kind of in bubble wrap. One of which I have to send out as soon as I can, but yeah, that's the game that is physically closest. I apologize, I'm not showing it. Alan seems to be quite keen to show it, so Alan can go next.
You're still muted, Alan, if you're...
Yeah, Wibble Plus and the Ming Voyages. That's because I think somebody asked some questions about Ming Voyages. Wibble Plus.
I'm sure, Alan. You just have it next to you all the time. So in case anyone asks that question, so you can do a little bit of spruiking.
Yeah.
And Matthew, do you have any games physically close to you?
I do. I have this pile. It happened this on top of the pile. Conspiracy Abyss. So yeah, fun card game.
And finally,
I have the NS View publisher has now this short packages, and you get them for I think €3 or €4, and they're all small games in it. But this is now a promo game, and Spuckstaben is a game from NS View, but these are some solo exercises, just showing how the game works. So I got them.
Sorry, these are the minis, right? Are they?
Yeah, the minis. Yeah, the minis. Yeah. But this is a promo, so I got it when I bought the game. It was a promo. There was a promo in it, and I can't throw it away. It's like, it's so sweet and cute. I know I will never do it, and it will stay there for 2 years because I can't throw it away.
Why don't you send it to somebody? Make a small gift of it to someone.
Yeah, but it's open. I make it open, so we're here. Happy birthday!
If someone you don't like very much, then that's it's just. So you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have given me that free thing that you've already opened.
Okay.
I mean, if it's playable, then it's still potentially a gift. But lots of love to Alexa. Thank you for dropping in, and shouts to Conspiracy. And let's get onto the main topic. Feel free to comment, ask questions from follow. But we are going to try and be somewhat on topic. Let's talk about pitching. Let's talk about why pitching is, in theory, a brilliant thing. Why is it a thing which is brilliant? I mean, to not try and take reasons away from everyone else, I'm going to say one reason why pitching is brilliant is because it kind of feels like the final test. It feels like, yeah, sure, there's some anxiety involved, but there's also some excitement. It's like, okay, this is what's... If my game is good enough for this publisher to then want to actually publish, to want to mass produce, then that's kind of like the final thing for the game. Do you know what I mean? And it feels like suddenly, whoa, I managed to get to that. Or, okay, no, it wasn't quite good enough. But it feels like, oh, you're getting to the final boss. So that's a brilliant thing about it. Alan, what do you think is brilliant about pitching?
It's brilliant because you're actually showing people your game. That's in a sense, that's the point of doing a game in a way, isn't it? I think. And it could be pitching to players, it could be pitching to playtesters, it could be pitching to publishers, it could be just demoing your game at a convention, whatever. Can I intervene? I haven't actually done my book of the fortnight. Is that right? Let's do this. Because this is my book of the fortnight.
Yes, show us your book.
This is the Military Maxims of Napoleon, okay? David Chandler. It's got lots of Military Maxims of Napoleon with commentary by David Chandler. Now, he actually says something about pitching because he says, the art of encamping in a position is the same as forming the line for battle in that position. To this end, the artillery should be advantageously placed. So remember that when you're pitching, okay?
Sorry, that went over my head a wee bit.
I think Alan's pitches go a very different way to our pitches.
I think it's I think it's more like pitching tents than pitching games. You see, it's a kind of.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
It obviously doesn't. It obviously doesn't work. Good job I didn't go with. Good job I didn't go with The Price of Apple by John Keegan, which was pitching in boats. Which is another type of pitch. Anyway, but brilliant thing. It's a brilliant thing because you're showing people your game.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we're going to have any viewers left after those puns, Alan.
Hello, Alex. I mean, I know that Alex is fine with puns, but yeah. Matthew, feel free to go next.
Well, actually, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not sure about the pitching, but in terms of the pitching experience, for me, at least at this point, I think one of the really nice things about it is it's a chance to actually catch up kind of with friends. I mean, because over the years, you pitch the same people from the same companies over and over again. And it's kind of the only time you get to see them. But, in several of the cases, actually, those meetings are just quite nice just to catch up with people you like to chat with. And actually, the games are, not an afterthought. Obviously, that's the purpose of the meeting, but it's I don't know. Often we might be chatting for 10 or 15 minutes at the start about nothing in particular, just because it's nice to sort of catch up and it's enjoyable actually. So it's I find it quite an enjoyable social kind of thing, and I don't think I would do so much pitching if I didn't find that enjoyable. You don't really get that with the virtual world, but it's in person. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a privilege for you, having done it for quite so long, though.
No, absolutely. No, it's but that being said, you can sometimes, even when you do meet some people for the first time and you hit it off, like if it's a good meeting and you have a good rapport for whatever reason, then it actually can just be enjoyable in terms of just a social interaction. And in a way, if you can think of it like that in some way, I think, and maybe we'll get on that later, I think it not only could probably make you more successful at pitching, but even if the pitch isn't successful, it means that you get something out of the meeting. Essentially, you have an enjoyable time. That's.
And Rita, what do you think is brilliant about pitching?
Yeah, normally I would say pitching is always very exciting, and mostly for me it's disappointing or not really disappointing because sometimes the publishers want to see a game or want to test it. And this gives you some energy to go on. I think this is what it's pitching about. Go on, have some information or getting some information to move on. Yeah.
It's feedback, right? You don't get feedback very often as a designer. You're often not working just by yourself, and that moment of someone saying what they think is.
Do you not play test?
No, why do you play test? That just gets in the way of making games. If you want to be efficient, that's play testing just takes time.
I mean, Matthew, some people might not realize that you're being facetious.
Well, yeah, no, I am. But well, yes, to a certain extent. Although it's interesting with certain types of games, of course, playtesting can be more or less important. I think sometimes you can have the German idea or these narrative games that you can't playtest that much because actually playtesting doesn't necessarily give you great information.
I sold a game with virtually no playtesting.
Playtesting is one.
I did sell a game with almost no play. Well, with only solo playtesting. Nobody else had played it at all. I sold that game. So
how did it go once it was released?
Fine, because it's in a magazine, so it was a captive audience, which is great.
This is a good point. No playtesting, no negative feedback.
Exactly.
Oh, good
Quite
idea.
Right, yep.
And
if you never pitch, then you can never be unsuccessful, right? If you just.
Hello, designer cardboard, Kia Aura to you as well. I hope you're generally well this evening.
To be fair, if you're pitching to a magazine, then they're trying to fill the pages of the magazine. So, in a sense, they're just looking for any reason to publish it rather than a reason not to publish it, which is nice for if you want to get something published.
If it's a magazine full of games, then sure.
Maybe we should just make a digital magazine that can be as long as we want, that costs nothing to, digitally distribute.
Yeah,
Just,
that's the way of doing it.
put everything we want in there. 800-page edition every month.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lots of sarcasm going around this morning. So let's get to the topic and let's discuss what pitching is. For me, I guess pitching is trying to make a publisher aware of it so that they will possibly give you they will ask you if they can print it. That's basically it. They will offer you a contract, or they will offer you some terms under which they will mass produce it. It's doing something to go with that, and whether that's meeting them, arranging a meeting at an old-fashioned convention. I say old-fashioned, by which I mean back in the heady days of February and March 2020, or maybe even like later on this year, who knows? Or indeed entering something like the Pitch Project, or reaching out to someone digitally, or making a meeting to say, hey, can I come around to your office and play this game with you? I'm interested in showing it to you. I think it's something you might want to. Or if you are doing a game as part of a competition, I guess that's where we were not quite sure, is that pitching or not? But Alan, do you agree with this broad definition? Any details that we need to uncover?
I think we are limiting this to pitching to publishers, are we? Is that because there's the concept that you could be pitching to playtesters or players, or I think if we're
pitching to publishers,
I think the whole purpose of pitching to a publisher is you would like them to publish the game. That's it. So yeah, as a definition, I think that's fine. And yeah, there can be multiple different ways of doing it. It could be at conventions. There's an interesting little point that pitching at Spiel or pitching at Nuremberg Nuremberg Fair, they're very, very different experiences. The thing about Spiel is that it's incredibly frenetic for the publishers. So they're all pressured for time, and there's a lot of stress, and it's noisy, and very often they're not quite as focused as you'd want them to be. Whereas at Nuremberg, which is a trade fair, so there's not lots and lots of games players there. You've got time. You can sit down. You can have a coffee. You can chew the fat.
I think
a bit more. And socially, it's much better at Nuremberg, I think, for pitching.
I think, Alan, it depends on how big the publisher is. So when the publisher is very big, the person who are looking at their games only do that on Spiel. And if you are going to a small publisher, he is also looking for customers and selling games and so on. So,
well, yeah, I was thinking of. I mean, for example, with we have a meeting every year with Cosmos, and they always say, yeah, it's really frenetic at Spiel. There's more going on at Spiel. It's much easier at Nuremberg because they're more relaxed at Nuremberg. So a lot of those people who are looking at your games are also involved in other things at Spiel, even if it's a large company, because they're having other meetings with other publishers, because it's all the publishers together. So it tends to be a bit more frenetic. You also got to fight your way through the crowds at Spiel.
Also,
you haven't got to do that.
Spiel is only 4 days officially, right? And Nuremberg is a week.
I don't think it's a week anymore, but but realistically, a lot of the game pitching people. I mean, we're getting a bit into the weeds of the specific conventions we're going to. But there's certainly different experiences. The thing I was going to add was also with pitching is that it can sometimes be even of an idea. Sometimes a company will reach out to you and say, we want a particular, we have an idea for a game in a line, or we want this expansion, or whatever. And sometimes actually you'll be pitching a concept, or you'll have like a pitch document. So actually you might not have even made the prototype yet, but you're trying to pitch them on the idea that you'll then develop afterwards. So, but yeah, it's always trying to sell something.
So, have you ever been to Göttingen?
Not to pitch games, but I have been to Göttingen when I was young. because it's
Yeah.
twinned with Cheltenham actually in the UK.
Yeah, and this is either I think I like Göttingen most because so if some of you don't know how Göttingen works, so in Göttingen there's a big hall and there are only designers and publishers, no customers, no public, only those two things, and every designer has a table. And on the table there are the games, and the publisher go from table to table and watching the games, and then they say, okay, that's good, that's not good, and so on. So, and this is, I think it's very cool because everything is on point, and yeah. And also have good talks then, and after that, in the evening, you can go out with them and either talk again or something like that. So it's very, very business. It's a very small business.
So it's
And
very almost like a speed dating focus.
Yes.
Do you have international representation at Göttingen there, or is it mainly German
Yes.
companies?
No,
International.
international.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, and can you go if you speak only English?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So I think there are. It was last year. It doesn't. For 2 years, I think there were 150 designers, maybe. And I think about 50 publishers, could it be? So, and from all over the world. So it was very, 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 very huge. Yeah.
I agree with Jay Foolsguard. This does sound great.
Yeah. And another thing
is there a website that after you're finished
yes,
talking, you can maybe put to the thing?
It's via Spieleautorenzunft. So this is the organizer. And another thing why all the publishers are there is the publishers doing before this 2 days. So it's only 2 days. And before these 2 days, all the publishers are in a hotel and having workshops together. And so that they are combining this event with the workshops, and so they are all together. And this is very, very cool. And it's very cheap. So I think if you're a SATS member, it only costs, I think, 15 or 20 euro.
Sounds
so
like
very,
I should definitely go.
Very cheap. You have to get a hotel and the journey and so on, but also the publishers have to do it, and there are a lot of designers sharing their hotel rooms and so on, and it's a big event.
That does sound fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a question that we can check in with everyone just in a moment about what is your favorite place to pitch, what's your favorite method.
Yeah.
But it seems like fundamentally what you're trying to do is you're showing something, as Matthew said, that might not be a full game, that might just be an idea, but you're showing something and then you're trying to get an indication of whether they will want to publish that. Sometimes it's just a vague indication, like in the case of you, Matthew, or Turksey, kind of saying, hey, I've got this vague idea. Is this something that you might want to publish down the road? And they might not necessarily put something into writing until it's a little bit more developed, but they're happy to say, yes, assuming it's up to your usual standards, yeah, we will want to publish this. Not that we're giving you an advance before you've even done anything. And sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew.
I mean, I don't think I think David Turtsey is probably a bit more along this. I wouldn't say really if I pitch something, it's a full concept, it's a playable thing. Even with the narrative concepts, we always make a demo which is a full, a playable thing. Sometimes it might be missing some like technological aspects because it's not possible, or it needs an app, and you're not going to make an app for it. But no, and all of that is separate from this point of when a publisher reaches out to you for a concept, because that's very different, because they're the ones approaching you, and they, that's. But if I'm just approaching a publisher out of nowhere, I always want something that's, playable, and it's a full concept and a full design, even if all the content, which I would sort of like the narrative writing, hasn't been done. Maybe you haven't made a 3-hour scenario, but you made a half-an-hour scenario or something like that.
So, yeah, it sounds like, I guess, David is a lot more, I don't
he's
really
a bit
know
more
many,
liberal with it, I think.
I don't know
he's a bit-
many other people who do the same kind of thing, but it's definitely all about showing your thing, saying, are you interested in this? And getting some sort of response, whether it's a no or a yes. And hello, Zharksama, it's lovely to have you join us, of course. And let's actually ask, when is a game ready to pitch? Because on one end, you have that Turksy approach, and let me kind of maybe move myself there. So we're still going clockwise, but you're next, Rita. So on one side, you've got the Turksy approach of, hey, I'm thinking of making this. Would you be interested in it? And actually, I've done a tiny bit of that where I reached out to a publisher that I have spoken to publicly at least one time in the past, and was saying, I've got this vague idea for a theme. Is this something that would interest you? To which they said, oh, you know what? That sounds actually really horrible. I definitely wouldn't ever do that, but someone else might do it. I was like, yeah, so I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to work on that as a theme. And but on the other side, you've got, I feel like the more further along it is, the more solid an answer you can expect. And if you want them to say, yes, we are definitely mass producing it, we're giving you an advance, typically your game has to be good. But Rita, how do you know when your game is ready?
So for me, a game is more ready when I have appointments on a fair then there is no fair. So then I testing again and so on. But when I have appointments, okay, this game has to be ready, and okay, it's ready. It's like, so maybe 1 or 2 testing times could be good, but I don't have the time, so it's ready.
I like that honesty. I mean, it has to presumably have a certain degree of quality for you to be able to fudge that. So, I mean, it's not like you've just
normally I play test a lot and so on, and I have a good feeling when I should show a game to a publisher. But when I have appointments on the fair, I give myself more pressure, and maybe it's not that perfect, but I'm showing it either, and maybe I get some good feedback or it works. So, okay.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, Matthew, I'll let you speak. I'll let it go around.
Oh no, well, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very tricky. I think you have to always, tailoring your pitch to the publisher is sort of is a thing, and it's something you should always think about. And when you're thinking about whether a game is finished or not, that I think comes into also as to which publisher are you pitching to, because depending on your relationship with that publisher, that will determine a little bit about kind of what standard is expected. If you have a bit more of a sort of casual relationship or kind of friendly relationship with the publisher, if you know each other, if you've been pitching for a long time, that means you can pitch games which are maybe a little bit less polished than you would do for a publisher you're meeting for the first time. It's all about, for that, it's first impressions, and you want to have something that really is as finished as possible. I mean, the thing is that, of course, games are never finished, right? I mean, you just decide at the time that you're going to pitch it. I think ultimately you just have to be able to stand by what you're pitching. And if you can honestly say to yourself, I can stand by that, even if the publisher doesn't like it or if they think that it should be developed. If I'm happy with it, if I'm kind of proud of it, or then I think that's when you know that what you're doing. But what Rita said about deadlines is and other people in the chat are talking about it. It's very motivating. Yeah, for most of my time, my designing was always focused around these sort of big fairs like Spiel and Nuremberg and Cannes. And I'd always think when I'm getting 3 months out of one of these fairs, I'd be saying, okay, well, I need to be kind of narrowing down which of the games I'm hoping to pitch, which then says, well, okay, these are the ones I'm going to focus on because I need to finish them. And because they're such good opportunities, I mean, I take the point that, I mean, all of us are actually quite in Europe, I think, generally pretty lucky in a way that we have actually pretty good access to a lot of these big conventions, which are still one of the best ways to pitch things. And making the most of those opportunities means that you want to work those deadlines. And yes, of course, if a game is like 70% versus 80% and it just happens at Essence here, well, you're going to pitch the game still because that's just a really good opportunity. But again, ultimately you have to stand by what you've done. And if you're happy with it, then because at the end of the day, it's your reputation, right? That's the thing that's going to suffer by pitching a game that isn't ready. You'll get rejected, of course, because the game isn't ready. But more importantly, there's something about there is something that if a publisher, you're building up a relationship with that publisher, and if you keep showing good games, finished games, even if the publisher doesn't sign them, you're building a good relationship and a good reputation as a designer who makes good games, who pitches things that are finished, and that can open up opportunities or at least keep the publisher open to keep meeting with you, and you'll have opportunity to pass. So that's what you've got to kind of consider, I think, in this, is something ready to pitch kind of idea.
It's definitely an interesting point of how do you know that you're kind of putting your best foot forward, essentially, that you're not embarrassing yourself, that you're not, I mean, something can be an early concept, but I guess if you acknowledge it, if you say, hey, it needs a lot of refinement, but this is basically the hook, and I want to know if this hook is of interest to you. And either they say, oh, yeah, that's a great hook, or no. I mean, if you're upfront about that, presumably, then that's okay. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, it definitely helps to give all the kind of information. But again, I think that comes down to the kind of relationship you have with whoever you're pitching to. And obviously, if you have a good relationship, then there'll be kind of more understanding of those sort of things. And you can push that a little bit more. As to say whether somebody's ready, you talk to other designers. So, it's the same thing of kind of, pitch it to other people before you go to the convention and say, like, does it seem reasonable, or get some other opinions, and you can kind of put that together, and that'll give you a good idea as well, I think.
Alan, what do you think about how do you tell if a game of yours is ready to pitch to another publisher?
I agree with what Matt and Rita have said. I mean, standing back and looking at it from a structural viewpoint, I like Argyris's garbage can model here. It helps, and it's a kind of I always go for the theory, it's a kind of coincidence of having your design, whatever state it's in, a decision point, which might be Spiel or Nuremberg or whatever, and the publisher's need. Now, the situation of your design, which, if you like, is the solution to the problem. So that situation. And if you can explain it and you have a prototype and you think it's ready for this particular publisher, that's good. The decision point, well, if you can make a meeting at a convention or elsewhere, then that's your decision point. And then the publisher's need is difficult because it depends on, as Matt has said, it depends on your relationship with the publisher. So I know, for example, if I'm talking to Cosmos, and I have a long-standing relationship with the person at Cosmos, I could probably pitch an idea and say, is this type of thing something which would interest you? And I'll react accordingly if they say no or yes, and we'll work on it. So it might just be an idea, not very much fleshed out. If it's a completely new publisher that I don't know anything about, I'll want to have something which is fully developed, so I can go in and say, yeah, here it is, and that's judgment. That's when as Matt was saying, Matt's done 100, 150 pitches. Matt will have a very good feel for for how this thing should work. So it's that coincidence of design, decision point, and the publisher's need, and that's all a matter of judgment. It depends on your relationship, but I think fundamentally, your bit, if you can explain it and you have a prototype, and you're confident of it, then you're ready, really.
Yeah, I think your point about confidence is, confidence can go a long way, rightly or wrongly, as to whether a game, it can make up a certain amount of percentage loss in the kind of, readiness of a prototype if you're sort of confident and clear, because that's the other thing that could be a difficulty. In your game might be finished, but if you can't really explain it, or if it's not really understandable, then that could look like the game's not ready or finished. So it's not just about the quality of the game; it's also about the quality of the presentation.
Yeah, and publishers can surprise you as well. You may think something. I mean, most designers have got stories, either for themselves or other designers, who've gone into a publisher and pitched one game and they didn't want it, and then they ask, "Have you got anything else?" And they pitched something. I know Martin Wallace did it once with, I can't remember who it was with, and the game he was pitching they didn't want to look at. They didn't want, but they said, "Have you got anything else?" And he said, "I've got this thing, but I don't think it's really right for your product line." And he showed it to them. They really loved it. So publishers can surprise you.
Sorry,
this is a very good point.
Pardon?
Rita said this is a very good point, and I asked, "Do you know which game that is?"
I don't know which game it was. No.
Okay.
I mean, I have a slightly similar. We all probably have stories, but for example, the adventure games with Cosmos, I almost wasn't going to pitch to Cosmos because at the time, I knew they had the Exit games, obviously massive, successful kind of where you play the game and it's done, and it had some narrative elements to it, and we sort of thought, oh well, like Cosmos already has this really, really popular line, they're not going to want to have something that effectively competes with that in some way. But because actually of the relationship I have with Wolfgang, the person with Cosmos being over a decade basically, and he always just wants to see absolutely everything, even if you don't think he doesn't really care. He'll tell you very, very politely, very nicely, but it's actually a very good from a publisher side, it's actually a very welcoming kind of stance that there's a real freedom to just show them anything because that's what they want. But anyway, he said, okay, Shoto actually immediately called over somebody who'd been in charge of the Exit line, and it was the quickest game, I think, in terms of they signed it almost immediately and they released the first game of the year. It's been the quickest kind of turnaround. And that was surprising because they actually saw it as a synergy between those lines rather than a competition.
I think that's key because if you're dealing with, particularly if you're dealing with a large publisher, show them everything. The large publisher will often, and we have the same relationship with Wolfgang at Cosmos. They want to see everything because if it's a large company, they'll have other people who are on the lookout for something. So even though it might not be in that person's particular area, he or she will know somebody else who might be looking for exactly what you've produced. So it's always worth showing everything if you can. Be quite expensive with that.
Now, we've concentrated a lot on in-person pitches, and obviously parts of that is our privilege to be able to travel to these places, to be able to make these meetings, and sometimes another way to pitch is obviously to send stuff over, whether it's email or whatever. And Zhark actually had a question about this, saying, I've sent a few pitches and not heard anything back yet. After you send a pitch and don't hear back, do you send a follow-up? I mean, I would say yes, if it was an opportunity that if it was reasonable to send them a pitch in the first place. I'm assuming you're not just sending, random blah at, just plucking random emails out of the ether and sending them stuff. I'm assuming that there's been some indication that they are looking for pitches. And so, yes, absolutely, follow up. But then the question becomes, at what point and how do you do that? But Rita, sorry to lumber you with the start of the question again.
So it depends. If I knew the person, I sent the email. So if I knew the person very good and I wait about, 3-4 months, and if there is nothing answered, I I write again. But normally during Corona time, I really, really, really don't like sending emails, because when in the times where no fairs are, they're getting so many emails. And of course, I know the person, but I'm still one of those emails. And I think there's another email. And I really maybe I sent, I don't know, during those year, maybe 10 emails maximum, and nothing more, because
emails to total or to
To-
one single person?
total,
Okay.
not to one single person. And because yeah, it if I know the person, I write them, but I write it, hey, can we just meet up for 50 minutes in a Skype meeting? So I always try to do this, because you can show it and you can talk, and the person can decide, okay, this is something for us or not, and don't have to read those long emails with all the rules and so on. So I think it's a good solution in those times, making quick appointments.
So 3 to 4 months is what you normally go by.
Yeah.
Matthew?
I mean, it depends. Yeah, I mean, as Ari said, it always depends on the kind of the publisher and the specifics of it. I also completely agree that I think it's better if you can have an appointment, whether it's in person or Skype or Zoom meeting or something. I think if you're sending an email which is sort of saying like, oh, I have a game, are you interested, sort of thing, I think if you haven't had any response, I think it's perfectly fine to send a short follow-up a month later. Again, you don't want it to be super long, and you just want to say, I sent this email a month ago. I just wanted to hear whether it might be interested or not. I think that's perfectly fine, actually. I think publishers get lots and lots of emails, but that's also kind of the gig. That's the job, especially if you are. I'm assuming again that, yes, as we sort of said, that you're sending it in response to kind of like an open call. Like you're not sort of cold emailing people. That's obviously a bit different. But so yeah, I think a month is fine. When you've actually pitched the game, if you've actually pitched the game in a meeting, that's a little bit different. And you're waiting for a publisher to kind of consider a game, then I would say, well, you're more into the kind of like 3 to 6 month kind of time frame. I don't think, it's good to ask when you pitch, like sort of saying like, oh, when do you think you'll have a chance to play this game? How long do you think you'll need to make the decision? Because that also then says, if whatever they answer that, then that tells you, okay, well, when we're at the end of that, that's a fine time for you to email, even if they haven't finished it. But yeah, something sort of 3 to 6 months. But yeah, if it's just an email, if you haven't really pitched the game, then I'd say 1 month is fine, I think.
Alan, anything to add?
Yeah, a couple of important things. When you're pitching, it's a conversation, right? It's a conversation between you and the publisher. So treat it like a conversation. So the most important point as a publisher, don't pitch randomly. Don't send a standard email to a whole bunch of publishers and say, this is my great game and it fits your product line completely and you're going to love it and all that. Don't tell me that I'm going to love it, because I might not. In fact, very likely I'm not going to love it.
What if it is a Pockets war game? I would still say, email me first, or talk to me at a convention. Say, introduce yourself first, so that we have a relationship. So, in other words, treat it like a conversation. First of all, we say, hello, my name is Alan, and then and you should get a response. Treat it like a conversation, especially treat it like a business conversation. So if you do that, then when you pitch, you should be finding out from the publisher what their response timescales are going to be. So you may find somebody, you may say to you quite happily, look, we play test our stuff once a year, and the next time we're going to be doing this is 9 months' time. So you're not going to hear us for at least 9 months, probably more like 10. So it's going to be a year before you hear anything much.
In which case it's fine. So you just all you need to do then is make sure that they've got the game, because you don't want to post them the game and then find they never got it. So you can do follow-ups like that. In other words, a normal business type of conversation, I think, is best, and have that exchange of information so that you're both clear about what the expectations are. Admittedly, it can be quite difficult with some publishers because some aren't desperately responsive because they're very, very, very busy, like us, for example, quite busy. But hopefully you'll get confidence in the publisher if you have a long-term relationship, so you'll know their method of operation, and that will really help both with when to pitch, how to pitch, and when to expect responses from the pitch. So that's what I would say. Treat it like a conversation. It's a grown-up conversation.
but Alan, in your case as a publisher, I mean, how far do you have to go as a designer to annoy you? Essentially, like if a designer is sending you, say, like, do you, even though you're very busy and it takes you a long time, do you ever, is it annoying when people email you once every couple of months just to check in, as long as they're kind of respectful, or No, once every couple of months is fine. I mean, especially if I've been laggardly, sometimes that will help, and I will realize, hang on, I ought to respond. What is quite annoying as a publisher, I find, is getting game submissions out of the blue from somebody, which can be anywhere in the world. I mean, I had one yesterday, for example, completely out of the blue.
When you say game submissions out of the blue, do you mean someone sending a sell sheet?
It could be lots of things. And the example I have was a sell sheet, rules, linked to a thing on Tabletop Simulator. So it's the full package, but completely out of the blue. Now that's not how you start a conversation. That's my particular take on it. So unless it's something which really, for that to work, they'd have to really know a lot about our company for that to work. It's just, a random submission is just not likely to work at all. But lots and lots and lots of designers try that. It's much better I think, to send some information about yourself as a designer. To get a counterexample, we get illustrators who approach us constantly saying, I'm a games illustrator and I'd like to do some work for you. The best ones are people who say, here's my portfolio, if you're interested, come back to me. And that's fine. But don't have an expectation they're going to look in detail at something you've sent if it's completely out of the blue. Have a conversation is what I would say with my company hat on.
I guess in terms of having a conversation, it might also be, if it's out of the blue, then say, hey, by the way, I've got insert hook or insert, key details, rough player count. I've got this game. It might be interesting to you because of Y. Would you like to look at it? And maybe that's reasonable first contact to Alan Polatzar, Price Terror Games.
Well, I mean, as a first contact for me, if you're looking at Pocket Campaign stuff, I hope you would have read about the Pocket Campaigns and a little about the kind of things I'm looking for. Then if you came back to me with an email and said, I've got this idea, I think it might fit with the Pocket Campaign series because blah, 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 as a first step, that would be great. I'd love that. And that's something I've had people do that already. So, that's the approach. Have a reasonable conversation. It's not magic.
So I want to acknowledge a moment ago. It's like half of us, me and Rita, were doing weekly yoga, and then half the room in the community centre was having this business meeting. But hello, Martyrix. It is lovely to have you. And we've got... Yeah, if you send a pitch and you don't hear back, 100% have a follow-up. The follow-up question was, if they say that they're going to get back in whatever amount of time, yes, maybe give them a day or whatever, but or if they say, hey, I'm going to get back to you in 2 days, maybe give them 3 or 4. If they say, hey, I'm going to get back in 1 week, give them week and a half. That's my personal perspective. That's what I'd personally do, just so it's not like, okay. And then, but absolutely, if someone said that they'll do something and they don't, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're not interested. It might just be that they're busy people. It might just be that it flew under the radar. I mean, check out, I think it was while we were recording that, was it while we were recording that Rita and Alan, you reminded me that I had to do things? And that, or was that before we went live? I can't remember.
It was before we went live.
Before we
Okay,
went live, yeah.
So basically, I've got something that I had to do. I'm not going to go into it for Alan and Rita, and I failed to do that. But, and you know, that is my bad. But at the same time, someone giving you a friendly reminder saying, hey, I've not heard about this. Have you been able to have a chance to look at it? You know, a friendly reminder. If it's not, hey, why have you not done this? How could you be, I'm being facetious. Why are you such a terrible person to not get back at me? Even if that's not what you're actually writing, if that's the message that someone gets back, that's not cool. But if it's just a friendly reminder, I think that's actually appreciated. Quick whip around. Do you agree? Or
Yeah, I think because you're trying to establish a relationship. So I think that's right. Friendly reminders are absolutely fine.
Question for Alan very quickly. How many pitches do you normally get in a year? I can see as someone at Alley Cat Games, personally, I was looking at maybe 5 a week, and that was the stuff that Cesar had filtered out.
Yeah.
So Cesar probably looked at about 20 or so.
We weren't getting so many in 2020, but 2019 we were getting. I mean, not as many as Alley Cat Games. We're a smaller company, but I was certainly getting at least one completely unsolicited pitch per week. Sometimes 2 or 3 per week. And we're a very small company, and we generally publish our own stuff. So companies which are advertising that they're taking submissions must get huge numbers. So we probably get.
So the point is, yes, you are sadly one of many, and you can slip through the cracks. And talking of snails and grails, hello Rob, it is lovely to see you. G Foolsguard says, I did some speed pitching a week ago, and some of the publishers were interested and would get back to me. And I plan to poke them if I haven't heard anything in 2 to 3 months. Yeah, that seems reasonable. I'm actually going to poke someone from February, I want to say, just to say, hey, by the way, I'm back in London. I'm thinking of redrawing these wee whimsical creatures. If I get time to scan them in, it might be a few weeks, but is that something that would be useful to you? And I'm actually thinking of doing a small self-published run, but it's not going to be thousands. It's going to be literally probably 50 or 100. And just it's kind of like letting them know my plans with it, if you know what I mean. So there's actually some new information, but Alex says, I think it's important to remember that most publishers are small operations working in a global pandemic, and maybe this isn't their day job even. I would always allow more time. But then again, some publishers are. If you're pitching to for some publishers, it is their day job. And like Matthew said, that's kind of the role they added. And if anyone has anything to say to any of these, please just butt in. Oh, yep, did that. Is a sell sheets essential? And where Alex puts forward her own opinion, maybe not essential, but a really useful resource to have. Matthew, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm the best. It's sort of interesting.
Matthew's in a privileged position and has never had to make a sell sheets, really.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, because I sort of started all this before sell sheets were a thing. It's only well, I don't know. What do you think? Sell sheets are like big in the last, 5 or 6 years, I'd say, something like that. And obviously I started pitching before that. So when you already have a relationship with the publisher, they're often happy for you just to put a quick description, or even they trust you, and they just say, we trust that you know what you do. And I completely accept it. It's very different now in terms of what the expectations are, and things like we haven't said here, but sell sheets, but also videos, like the idea of having to have a video of your game is much more common in terms of a pitch, I would say, or at least I've seen more companies kind of asking for it. I don't think it's essential, but I think you just have to follow what the publisher is looking for. And I think what Alan and Rita and all of this said before is that anytime the first time you're getting contact with a publisher is always to just get to the next step of another email or another part of that conversation. So it's always introducing yourself, say you're a game designer, and saying, look, I'd be interested in pitching you something or showing you something, how can I go about that? And, it's kind of getting them involved, and hopefully, the next step of them might, that publisher then telling you what they want. They might say, yes, I need it. I would like a sell sheet, or I would like a video, or we can have a meeting or whatever. But I think, and I would do that if, I would only make the sell sheet in response to somebody wanting one. I wouldn't do one preemptively. But again, I don't think I'm necessarily the best person to ask, because it's just not how I.
Because you're so successful and you don't.
No, it's not. But I think that's it. I don't know. Look. Okay, yeah, I'm very lucky. But no, I don't. I guess I want to slightly dissuade the point about that if you're successful, that it means that I think we all know, right? We've all had some success, and we all get rejected just as much as anybody, right? It's like, and I also want to say to newer designers to not feel like, oh, I haven't had anything published. There's no, I'm at this disadvantage because these other big, designers. Because I don't, honestly, most publishers I've met are very kind of open. They truly believe that the next great design could come from anybody. They don't think that it's only these multi-published things. And I would just say that the advantage you have is that, yes, you can. It helps set up meetings and things like that. But anyway, sorry, that was just a brief point.
So I have 2 points for this question. And the first point is I just talked to a publisher about that theme half a year ago, and it depends on the game, because this publisher was a publisher also for expert games. And for expert games, it's very, very important to have a sell sheet, so that you show some pictures, you tell what is unique of this game, and telling a little bit of this game. And then you can send it to the publisher and say, hey, if you are interested in it, I send you the rules. But don't send only the rules, especially for an expert game with 30 sides of rules. So don't do that. If it's a party game and the rules are on one side, and it's a children game and the rules are very, very short, I think you can also send the rules. And another point is I'm coming back to Göttingen, the big designer event. They have a mailbox. It's a real mailbox. So every publisher has his own Ordner.
Post box,
Post
little
box.
box.
Ja, so er has his own, was heißt denn jetzt wieder Ordner? File? He has his own,
Section, yeah. File.
Yeah, it's like a post box with different...
Oh, like a filing cabinet,
Yeah. And then...
Or drawer? Do you mean a drawer?
Filing box type of thing.
Yeah, you can put in some sheets. A folder, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
So every publisher has its own folder, and if you are having a game, you can make a selling sheet, and put it in the folder, and the publisher are taking all the sheets out of it and looking at it, and then if something is interested, you can they can go on your table, because you're only writing your number of your table, and then you go to your table and, hey, this sounds interesting, show me this game. And what I'm also doing on such events like Göttingen or Haar, it's nearly the same. I make an overview of all my prototypes I have with me. So I write down, okay, children's game. I have these 2 prototypes and a picture with a short information. And for families, I have this. And it's on my table. So if a publisher comes here, he shows on my table, show me this. And show me this. So he can pick the games he thinks it's good for. And yeah, so I think selling machines are very important.
Can I
Okay.
can I disagree completely? Is that all right?
Yes.
No, Alan, no.
no, I can't.
No, this show's all about blind agreement.
I don't think you need a sell sheet at all. But I do think that when you're, I mean, I think Göttingen may be an exception. I think that there needs, obviously, in that environment, there needs to be something that you can show publishers, and it's a specific environment for pitching. And in a sense, you do for that. You probably want a 1-page pitch because they're looking at stuff in advance and then going to see. So, I think what you're trying to do, speaking as a publisher, what I need to know is information about your game concisely, and you need to tell me what's memorable, or you tell me what's unique about your game. So your pitch needs to be your initial pitch, the very first thing that you are telling me, which might be simply a paragraph in an email, or it might be a picture and some information on a piece of text if you're using the Göttingen approach. It needs to be informative, concise, and memorable. That's what it needs to be. You need to hook me as a publisher so that I know how your game is unique. You need to tell me what the best bits of your game are like. But the whole point of the pitch is as a call to actions. You're trying to get me to do something, right? That's what you're trying to do. But for that, I don't need a sell sheet. I hate the name. It's horrible because it suggests that what you're trying to do is market your game to me. It suggests you're trying to advertise your game to me. Now, the problem with advertising, particularly, is that it isn't necessarily fundamentally honest. Now, what I need to know is the guts, the actual honest information about your game. I don't need you to try to show me by pretty pictures how great your game is. I need to know actually the essence of your game. So if you can describe that in an email to me, which you should be able to do, and you might attach a picture, I don't know, then if you hooked me, then I will come back to you and say, send me the rules. Even if it's a complex game, I will come back to you and say, send me the rules. Now, from the rules, I will be able to assess whether I want to take it to the next stage, or indeed, I can assess whether I want you to do a face-to-face pitch at a show or whatever. So that's what I need. I don't need a sell sheet. The problem with a sell sheet is that they tend to be standard marketing pieces of guff, and I want more and less than that, if you get my meaning. I want to know the essence of your game. Why should I as a publisher be interested in it? And that needs to be quite carefully done as a hook for me.
So there are other things of sell sheets, but before we've got to a very specific question, what's the best hook? Can you give an example of a good hook that someone pitched in a game?
Well, I mean, at the moment, because I'm looking at Pocket Campaigns thing, a good hook is to be able to show to me that you've got a game which fits in this style of box, and it's got a kind of war or conflict theme, and it's got something in it which is unique and interesting. So, I mean, for example, Rob's probably still here. Rob Harper pitched to me in what I thought was the perfect way for a Pocket Campaigns game. He came to me and said, I've got this game which I think might fit with Pocket Campaigns. He knows Ming Voyages and Cousins of War and stuff like that. And he told me a little bit about his game, just a sentence or two. And then we sat down and we had a play of it at some point in the relatively near future after that initial contact. So it's basically this is the unique bit. In this case, it was His game is called The Castle War. It's not that's just a working title, and the hook is a specific mechanic which is different from stuff that we've already got in the Pocket campaigns and feels like something interesting. And even if not necessarily completely unique, it's an interesting way of approaching a wargamey type theme. So that's a hook for me straight away.
Are you not wanting to give the full mechanical details because it feels like it would take too long, or
it would take too long to yeah.
Okay. And Martyrix says pitching's often difficult. That's why I let an agency do it for me. Manuel says, I have found sell sheets very useful in events where publishers see hundreds of games in a couple of days. They get something to remember what they saw, and they have all the contact details there. Ideally, they can even be made so you can teach the game from it. I guess, do you mean as in you can play the game without the pieces, or do you mean using that as a quick teach, quick start kind of guide? But sell sheets are an opportunity to show your game visually with the most important information, said Jay Foolsguard. I have tried to make a sell sheet a couple of times. The second time it was as part of a competition, and the feedback that I got, having put a couple of days time into it, and what I thought was a good amount of effort, and I had a bit of back and forth with some people who gave me advice on how to do things better. The feedback was that I had clearly put no effort into it. And so that was a bit demotivating, frankly. And it made me think, well, clearly this isn't a strength of mine. And so maybe I shouldn't be making sell sheets, because I didn't take the time to try and make it graphically whizzy. But, I had a couple of images of the game and what I thought was the best text to try and explain the game. And yeah, I can see that you need to jump through certain hoops. Like if you are pitching to a company and they say, we want sell sheets, frankly, no matter what, you need to make a sell sheet. If there's a company and they say, we need videos, you need to make a video no matter what. Hopefully, if it's actually at the point of a company, it won't be just a sell sheet. There will be other things in the Google form or whatever, if that's the way that they're soliciting opinion. And they will be able to say, okay, wait, this is a terrible sell sheet, but, reading through this other bit, it does actually sound kind of interesting. But let's be honest, that's the sad reality, that WYSI graphic design is going to get someone to spend maybe 1 minute rather than 30 seconds before they decide to say, no, this clearly isn't for us. Matthew?
Yeah, I just it's not really helpful, because I just feel very lucky, to be honest, because I'm in the same space, I think, as you, Bez, in that my graphic design skills and video making skills are terrible, and I would know I would spend so much time trying to do something that would not be very good. So I think I think if for you, as any designers out there, if it's not a strong point for you, one way is to obviously invest in that, even if it means either getting other people to help you make those things. Because, yeah, you're right, it is a reality, unfortunately, that kind of thing. The other way is to look for opportunities which are maybe less dependent on that. And I think there are still some conventions, some of the bigger conventions, if you can get to them, that publishers will be open to meeting with you, and with a minimum amount of kind of like stuff having to be sent to them beforehand. Maybe not every publisher, but certainly some publishers. And that can be a way to if it's not a strong point of yours. So, I think it's understanding the reality, but then also finding ways to, if it's not your strength, to kind of find another way in, something like that.
And I would absolutely agree, like, play to your strengths, and going back to what Alan said, think about what that publisher wants. I mean, clearly, Alan is, if anything, turned off potentially by WYSI graphics in a sell sheet. If you said, hey, this is my sell sheet, and sending a PDF. And so, a paragraph of text is the appropriate thing. But for someone else, yeah, and a paragraph of text does actually go a long way, because it feels quite unassuming. And if you're sending it to someone and you know that they're looking for a particular kind of game, then you might be able to do what Rita did and set up something. And yeah, Z-Hark says, I'm glad I did a 1-minute pitch video for my game. If that fits your game, if you're able to show it off well, then brilliant. And I'm okay with graphics design. I suck at the whole pitching. Yeah.
Could I? Yeah. I think that's an interesting point. I think a lot of people might well say that kind of thing, that they've got a particular skill, might be text, might be graphics, but they're not very good at pitching. It's a bit like interviewing for a job, in a way. And as I said before, this is all supposed to be a conversation. So you may think that you're not very good at pitching, but it's up to the publisher, that other person, to bring out what you're trying to say so that they can understand it. So it's a two-way street. And somebody who you can work with and have a long-term relationship with will hopefully enable you to bring out what you want to say. Because the last thing you want as a publisher is to have a pitch from somebody and not realize that what they got is something really, really brilliant. You need to be able to find out whether what they're presenting is brilliant, even if they can't necessarily transmit that well. So yes, I think obviously you need to try as hard as you can, and that's quite important. But it's also up to the publisher to be open and be able to find out what you're selling. That's key as well. It's a two-way process. And I would say it's a bit like, as I said, it's a bit like being interviewed. If you are being interviewed for a job and the other person is really hostile and doesn't help you, then they're probably not you're probably not going to get in the right job. They're probably not the right company for you, either to work with on a game or to work with in a job.
I think this has taken a lot more time to get to the second question than I thought it would. So we have to have a little bit of a lightning round. I want to say Manuel's points that you have to be aware of how you might pitch. Manuel once had to pitch on top of a garbage bin at Essen, and having images that show the game state and being able to say, okay, so this is what you do in this example. So you can sort of quickly give an overview of the game using the images in that. That seems really good. So we've talked about when a game is ready to pitch. We talked about sell sheets and stuff. Let's have a very quick 1-minute conversation. When is self-publication the better route? I am going to say both of them are different types of hassle. Do you prefer the hassle of logistics and possible financial ruin? And or do you prefer the hassle of pitching your stuff and getting rejected? Both of them take time. They are a different kind of hassle. Do you have strong disagreements, Alan?
It just depends. It really does. I mean,
okay.
It's very different. I don't know the answer to that. I have no clue.
For me, it's a very interesting question because I'm now on the point. I have a game. It's a party game, and I think it's very cool. But I show it to a lot of publishers, and they find it. They also find it cool, but they didn't want to publish it. So I'm now thinking of publish it myself. So I don't know if this is a good decision, and I would say I would have the money, but I don't know if I have the power to do this on my own.
I would say that human beings, a lot of human beings, are very, very bad at risk management. That's all I say. I have self-published. I have self-published a game and sold very few, and had to scrap lots and lots of copies. You learn from that, but it's. Oh, well, that's a good point. That's the point I was making.
I mean,
on screen.
Yeah,
now.
not having the finances. I think it is very possible to do it on minimal finances during everything that I spent on Inner Bind until, again, okay, this is a tricky one because I was going to conventions anyway, and I showed it off to people at conventions. And I was lucky enough to be in London, where I'm able to cycle over to playtest places. And I had a lot of time, that's the thing. But I would say that I spent hundreds of pounds probably, if you include, all the prototyping materials, everything. In terms of actual marketing, I probably spent about £15, which was sending something to someone, to one single reviewer, and that wasn't even at the start of the campaign, which was a terrible choice. But you can do it on a budget, but I think that's kind of an exception. It's probably unlikely to happen. So yeah, I totally get not wanting to do it. And Kickstarter has also changed. This kind of feels like we probably want to skip past this question, but fundamentally, yes, I just want to acknowledge if you're self-publishing, the onus is on you to do a lot more playtesting than if you're pitching. Can we just agree with that and move on? I'm inviting disagreement, by the way, just to make it clear. Okay,
No,
I'm assuming everyone agrees. Okay, next. How do we find a suitable publisher? This is a two-parter. Firstly, what's a suitable publisher? Matthew?
I really wonder, Bez, in a way, whether we should just say we're gonna do pitching over two episodes, because it feels like we're gonna cram a lot of pretty useful, fundamental information into a couple of minutes. But I think, obviously the most direct thing is to look at what are the other games that a publisher does in terms of, and how well does your, and it comes back to all these things about when you get in contact with a publisher that you want to start a conversation, and a great way to do that is to show respect for them, to show that you've done a bit of research, that you can say, oh, I've got this game and I think actually it's similar to this aspect in this game that you've published, I think it would be a good complement for that, or I think it could extend what you've already been doing in game X or Y. That's a really great way to show that, A, you're sending a personalized email because it's specifically mentioning something about that company. You've done some research, you've done some work, and you actually have some understanding of your game and how it sits in relation to other games. So yeah, just having a look at, that's a really good point. There are some really great publisher directories. And you can also just, another way is just look on Board Game Geek, often with Essen. I'll look at, what games that are being released at Essen, and that'll tell me all the publishers are there, and then I can start looking through the games of those publishers, like the websites of those publishers. See what fits with that. See who, and those directories are useful in the senses that they often give you a sense of who are actively seeking submissions. I'll give it a little bit of a shout out here to Alley Cat Games, because I think they have one of the best websites in terms of telling designers what games they're looking for, and it's updated reasonably regularly, actually. So if anyone can find that and put the link in, that'd be great. And I wish more publishers do that, because I think it would make it easier to find that. But you just have to put in that work to find the suitable publisher for your game. And then what skills, creations, and necessary pitch? Well, that's, you're getting into the kind of job interview, you're getting into presentation skills, you're getting into interpersonal skills, you're looking at organizational skills. How do you make sure you're not late to meetings? How do you balance all of that? I feel like it's a bit too short a time to discuss what is actually a pretty, it's a huge skill set, and it is important actually, because I still think it is the most effective way to get your game published is a in-person, or I guess over Skype kind of meeting, where you're kind of pitching in person. I think that's still the best way to get a game published. And yeah, there's a lot of things that go into making that successful. So I would petition that we move it to, that we do a second topic in 2 weeks.
I'm going to say that we will try to rattle through all of these very quickly, but next week we can skip the, what we've been up to recently, and because it did take us half an hour to actually start talking about our topic.
Oh no, that's nice. I like that relaxing. But I guess
it was very good conversation.
Because we've already got we've only got 2 meetings before I break up for episode 400, and then I don't want to do. So our next meeting was going to be about working with publishers, and I thought we can go back to some of this, and then the final meeting is going to be a recap. But
or we could just get rid of the recap. I mean, that's also anyway.
We could.
It's up to you, Ben. I'm sure you'll sort it.
Let's try and go through these quickly, and then we can go through them again next week if we need to. Rita, any quick suitable publishers?
No.
Okay. Anything more to add about suitable publishers, Alan?
I think the key I found is get long-term relationships with publishers. So, like I said, the example that I think Matt and I both had with Cosmos, we've both talked to Cosmos every year for probably a decade. I don't know. Anyway, so have long-term relationships. Get that element of trust that you know what you're talking about, and you can exchange ideas and comments. And you may not actually pitch anything for ages, for years, and then you'll suddenly find that, oh, this time, this game, I think we both agree this is the kind of thing we want. So having long-term relationships with people you trust, that's really key.
Could I just punch in a second? I think that also is something related to kind of like networking, I guess, is this idea. I think some designers make the mistake of when they see, when they see a publisher just at a convention or some situations, you kind of rush straight into like, oh, I'm a designer, I have a game, publish it. I think a much more kind of sustainable, reasonable thing is to develop some sort of relationship, even if it means not even pitching anything, or not, maybe not even like showing that you're interested in what they're doing first and building up, because that, that's the way to kind of build some rapport with someone before sort of rushing in and going like, look at my thing. It makes. I think you want to get away from this idea of it being transactional, because nobody wants to feel like that they're just, they're just like a placeholder for money signs or something, So anyway.
Yeah, 100% long-term relationships. And the other half of the question is, what skills or creations are necessary to pitch? Like, we talked about the utility or lack thereof of sell sheets. We talked about needing a video. Do you think there's anything that's actually vital except for the game itself? Rita?
What is vital?
Anything that is absolutely 100% necessary.
Yourself. Yourself is necessary.
Oh yeah, that's a fair point. Also, you have to sell yourself.
You should design a self-pitching game that you just sort of leave on a table and then just talks to people as they walk past. No,
but in all seriousness, Rita sparks an interesting idea that you're pitching yourself, as in you are an easy person to work with, as much as the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of publishers are. Alan's point about the job interviews exactly on a lot, as Rita says as well. It's right, because they're sort of just yes. Anyway, get our minds out of the gutter. They like publishers. They're not just worried about the game. They're often going to have to work with you for months or even a year, and they're kind of testing out to see whether they would even want to. Or so that's kind of interpersonal skills. I would say one of the absolute most important things is being able to clearly and succinctly, and often concisely, explain your game, both in terms of accurately portraying, the important information about the game, making it seem interesting, but also doing it in a way that is, clear and quick. And I think it's a similar skill to teaching games, actually, to teaching rule. I feel like actually there's a lot of overlap between, if you're quite good at teaching games to other people, I think you're probably good at pitching games. And I think that is for that kind of in-person meeting, I think it's absolutely right. If you can't describe the game, what it is, why it's interesting, if you don't, then, well, the pitch, I don't think is going to go very well.
So firstly, obviously, how has pitching changed in the last year? It's clearly we're not meeting up people in person, we're doing digital stuff, we're sending emails, and doing things via Skype or Microsoft Teams was one that I was asked to install for one company. And the question here is, are we likely, both as a community of board game designers and board game publishers, in your opinion, and as individuals, to go back to in-person pitches? Rita? I mean, personally, I am 100% going to go for in-person pitches as much as I can, because that's where my strength lies.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Me too.
Great. Matthew?
Yeah, no, I just missed something you said that I was going to say, but that doesn't matter. But yes, I think going back to in-person meetings. Yeah, come back to me. I'll remember what I was going to say.
Alan, are
Yes,
you happy to have people come round your stand and show things?
I definitely prefer in-person pitches. Also, the other thing I was going to say about when you're pitching, absolutely vital, is you've got to be honest. You must be. Don't oversell stuff. So your game isn't necessarily the most brilliant game that's ever been designed. So don't say it. You know. No, seriously, I've had people say this is brilliant.
It's going to sell as much as Monopoly.
If I think it's brilliant, that's great. You want me to think it's brilliant. You don't need to tell me that it's brilliant. What was the other one? Oh yes, the other one is, yes, don't be defensive when you're pitching. So be open to criticism, and so it means that if I say, well, I don't think that mechanic's really going to work very well, you should be asking me why. Why don't I think that? But you're not telling me that's very important. Be open, and be honest. Yeah.
I was going to. Sorry, I remember what I was going to say. It was a kind of flippant remark about Bez. You saying that that Microsoft Teams was this novelty. You've been lucky throughout this whole, that you haven't been subjected to a suite of new working tools, and like I can't count the amount of like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Slack and everything. So no, it's just a funny thing. We've had very different experiences maybe over the last year.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I haven't had Microsoft Teams either. Hurrah!
Yeah. Firstly, yes, Alan is a very practical, prosaic person, you could say. Manuel says, I've had publishers ask, why is this the best game in the world? And if it's not, why would I publish it?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Like if a publisher said that to me, I would not want to work with that publisher. I'm sorry. Like that. Yeah, it's the most. It's just completely. And I also hate, to be honest, when people ask like, what's the unique? I know we sort of said that you need a hook in this kind of like, what's the unique part of the game? But it completely misses that the kind of nuance that a game can be more than just a standout mechanism. You know what I mean? Like it can be it can put you in a space of play that is particularly pleasurable or interesting or calm, or like I don't know, Calico or something very popular at the moment. Like what would you say is you couldn't say that that's the best game in the world. You can't say that it's unique, yet it's incredibly popular. And I think you just got to be careful not to reduce things out of that.
And I think it's, as I said before, it's also important to remember that the publisher has a role in this. The publisher should be trying to make this work. The pitch, which a lot of designers maybe. I think because I used to do job interviews myself as well, and one of the things that I was taught when I was learning how to run job interviews is that it's up to the interviewer. It's up to the interviewer to put the interviewee at ease and make it easier for the interviewee to say what they need to say. And the publisher has that's exact same role with a pitch. Perhaps we need to train publishers how to take pitches.
Alex suggests that Calico might be the best game in the world for people who like crunchy puzzle games about cats. But frankly, if the designer came to and said, this is the best game, frankly, you're ignoring Isle of Cats. And that's the one that quickly comes to my mind. And there are other, I can't think of more crunchy games about cats off the top of my head right now, which is slightly embarrassing. But sure, there is this element of it's the best game in the world for this person or for this moment. It's just, if a publisher said that to me, I would say, is this the best game in the world? And if not, I would say, no, it's not the best game in the world in my opinion because it's not Go, and I think you should still publish it because there deserves to be more than one game published ever, and frankly, the board game industry can't survive, and you need to publish more than one game ever and all do your own brand. You can't just have everyone publishing Go.
So if a publisher asked me that, I think no publishers ever asked me that. I would answer it that no, I would answer it the unique thing of the game. I would not answer it, it's the best game, because I would always answer the unique thing of this game is.
Yeah, I mean, Alex's thing, like, I wouldn't say that. That's a very, okay, responding with a slight aggression with aggression. But I do get what you're saying there. I agree with Matthew. It's just not a fine question to be asking. I think that I would probably be trying to say why this is a best game for what it is. Like, yeah, Alex says, okay, it's the best game for people who like crunchy puzzles, cats, and quilts. Yeah, I can think of no other game that's crunchy puzzles for people who like cats and quilts. I will 100% agree with that. And that's a small demographic, but people who like cuteness, cats, quilts, and puzzles, yeah, Calico. Best game in the world for that particular situation where you want those particular things.
I can see Patchwork's going to come out with the Cats expansion soon to muscle into that territory. You know, they're only missing one of the three, so you know it's.
But in all seriousness, we had a very quick question about whether we practice pitches, which I would say, yeah, but
that's Yoda.
It's the best game in the world. That's high designed. Actually,
but that means like, you can only publish one game then. You know, like that's yeah.
You know, okay. I'm sorry to be. If any of you three have to rush off, please let me know, and I will wrap it up on my own. But I really want to share the story about my crisis, about my. After Yogi became quite popular, and I started selling Wibble++, and I thought it was such a good game. I feel like, you know, it's such a nice series of games, and like I feel like Wibble's really strong, and I feel like, you know, Grabble, it really gets people in, but Phrasal, you know, people have enjoyed it, and all of the games I'm really proud of, but then it just wasn't selling. It was just harder to sell than In a Bind. Back when I used to sell In a Bind. And that's the thing, like, if I compare everything to In a Bind, I realized, wait a minute, frankly, In a Bind, that's
like a very high bar.
That's the thing, like, it is very quick to see what's going on. Glimpsing that game, basically for a fraction of a second, tells you what you need to know about it. And I can explain the game and have you understand it in 30 seconds, and yeah, I can demo it very nicely. It's really easy to demo, and Dave Cousins did a great job of basically foisting it upon people at Essen. And so then, yes, when it came to Wibble++, it was like, okay, how can I justify the fact that I'm making this if from a certain perspective, I might never make a game that sells as many copies as Yogi is the truth. I mean, I hope that I will. I'm not saying that I'm going to be averse to that, and I pitched, you know, some games last year that I hope would sell at least, you know, 50% of what's that sold, which would be a very good amount. And
but Bess, you forget about Dinosaurs Love Spicy Pies.
Look, in all seriousness, I think every game has to be the best at what that game is trying to be. And then I was like, okay, what's the LDEC trying to be? That's like trying to be a curated game system. I'm going to try and make it the best curated game system. Like, frankly, I was very arrogant and called In a Bind / Yogi the best game of physical contortions, which or physical constraints. So no one's disagreed with me yet, but Gigamic chose not to have that maybe braggadocio under packaging, which I completely understand. A bigger publisher might not be so confident, might not want to make such risky claims. But you know, with Kitty Cataclysm, it's like, what's the point in this? This is like the best chaotic game that's super quick, and it's trying to be the best that this can be. It's not trying to be something else. It's not trying to be the best game in the world. I actively am proud of the fact that Mike Nudd does not like Kitty Cataclysm, because Mike Nudd does not like sudden surprises that throw you out of the game. And, you know, I got to a playtest where Mike Nudd didn't like it. And Mike Nudd was, oh, that's... And I was like, now, do I solve for this problem or do I lean into it? And I chose to lean into it, because that's the thing. You need to make sure that you are going to turn people away. Anyway, sorry. That's probably getting back into the whole development design of the game. But I think that's the key thing, that no, your game isn't the best game ever. Your game isn't going to sell as much as Monopoly, almost certainly not. It's probably not going, but, you know, saying it's a Monopoly beater, that kind of shows a certain naivety and yeah, irresponsibility, frankly. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry, I should let you go. Also, there are people in the world who don't like chocolate. Let's see. I think as a designer, when you look back on your previous works, you can go, wow, I thought this was okay. Sometimes you are actually really proud of those things, and sometimes you think, wow, my present work doesn't compare to that thing that I did last year or 5 years ago, but you need to be okay with that. And sometimes you do improve, but it's like an oscillating thing, and it's multi-dimensional. It's not like there's one perfect game and everyone has to move towards this one perfect game. Games are trying to do different things. But yeah, absolutely, what is the audience for the game? Definitely growing as a designer, says Jay Foolsguard, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. And yeah, that's what it's all about. A local bookstore had the game Wizard on their shelves for years with the tagline, the best game in the world. Almost bought it just to check. Played it eventually, says Manuel. It's okay. Okay, so with that, is there anything else that anyone wants to say right now about pitching? And we can maybe come back to working with publishers, because that's kind of part of pitching and getting back to them and all that sort of stuff next fortnight. Any final words?
Yes. As I always say in every of your show, just move on and do it.
Matthew.
I think that's a perfect place to end. You know, just get on with it. You know.
Yeah, get pitching. Pitching.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
Pitching is what it's all about. Pitching, and we didn't shout. Let's see. Oh, I still need to. So, if you have enjoyed, where's my things? So, firstly, let me do the recap and wrap up. We've talked about a fair bit. We talked about what pitching means. Oh, we didn't really. It would be interesting to talk about maybe your Days of Wonder experience next fortnight, Matthew, like how you didn't really have to pitch it. We talked about the book of the fortnight. We talked about getting fired up and sometimes curbing your enthusiasm. We talked about Band of Brothers and Snails and Grails. We talked about touching trees and games that are literally close to us. We talked about showing games, about that excitement, about having, you know, friends there to help us. We talked about Spiel and Nuremberg and Göttingen. We talk about deadlines, how, you know, having a meeting makes you think, yeah, you know what, this is ready, even though you might be tempted to do a lot more work, because sometimes you just need to get pitching. But it's also about how well you know that person. Are you ready to just give them a vague concept because maybe you are, maybe you aren't? But you need to also be honest. Can you stand by it? Is something that Matthew asked you. Align, as Alan Paul said, your game, their needs, and the kind of decision points, like the opportunity. So like there's a meeting, and then make sure that your game is aligned to them. Don't pitch randomly. Have a conversation. Ask about the turnaround time. Make sure that they've got some indication of when they will get back to you so that you know when to chase them up. Because if you forget to ask them, well, you might get back to them in 3 months and they say, whoa, why did it take you so long to get back to us? And whereas if you say, okay, when should I expect to hear back from you? And then they say, oh, within 2 weeks, and then you get back to them in 2.5 weeks, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, but as Matthew said, if you're pitching something and then they're like, okay, we're interested in it, we're going to play it in 9 months' time, you can check that they actually got the game, that, hey, I just want to check that it's with you, but then you need to just wait for 10 months and maybe put something into your digital calendar if you've got one of them. Yeah, sometimes it's weeks or months or years. Talk about the hook, the vital statistics. It needs to be informative, memorable, something about it, like the hook, and it has to be concise. It has to be as short as it can possibly be and quick to look at. And then from that, if the publisher is interested, then you send them the rules and all that stuff. Talking about researching the publishers, talking about building up trust, talking about building up long-term relationships. And yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff that we kind of skimmed through. Yeah, basically, we all want to get back to in-person meetings. And yeah, self-publication is its own kind of hassle. We touched upon that very briefly. Get on with it. What is this? Monty Python. Thank you very much, Manuel and Zehark and Alex. It is lovely to have you all. 100%. I will happily share a picture of, not necessarily, yeah, I'm not going to talk about what might be in that picture because like it might just be water, but hopefully we can get together for a drink, everyone, at some point in the not too distant future. I want to say thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, everyone watching. Thank you, everyone who's here. Alan, Matthew, Rita, it's been lovely having you all. Everyone watching, you've been all sorts of wonderful. If you want to check me out, I am stuffbybez.com. Twitter and Instagram /stuffbybez, twitch.tv. I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time for the next 37 days, and all the old episodes are on YouTube. And as of next week, I am going to start streaming 12 times a week, which is kind of ridiculous. But those 4 additional streams are going to be me maybe playtesting and casual conversations at 4 p.m, 1 hour maximum. When I say maximum, it might actually be like 65 minutes, but I'll try very hard to keep it to that 1 hour like Matthew does. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And feel free to check out the Discord. But let's go clockwise. So Rita, if people want to check you out, where should people be checking you out?
Instagram, Rita on Fire. I post a lot of board game stuff and board game designing stuff and so on. And I also have a podcast called Spielen aufs Ohr. It's a German podcast.
And those links will be everywhere. Alan, Matthew is next. Matthew.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, mainly Twitter is best for me. I'm Wise Goldfish on Twitter, but the links are on the page. I'd also just like to quick shout out. I've started a newsletter, sort of like once a month. So if anyone's interested in catching up with news, if you go to my Twitter page on the first tweet, there's a link to sign up for that newsletter, just to see what I've been up to in terms of games. And I stream as well once a week on Wednesday mornings, just before bed.
That's at 9 a.m. UK time or 10 a.m. Prague time.
Yeah.
And finally, the resident Alan Paul, as opposed to all the other Alan Pauls that I know. Where do you like to be found?
Alan at surprisedaygames.co.uk or alan@alanpaul.co.uk. I'm Benton Fish on Twitter, and yeah, that's easiest to get hold of me on email actually.
Okay, so if you've got one burning thing that you need to share to everyone, like feel free to pick up something, like whether you've got something that you want to share, something you're looking forward to, hopes or ambitions, over to what are you up to. You have a minute to share, but only if you want to. So, Rita, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I have such a nice color for my fingernails. Look.
The camera isn't really focusing on your nails.
I love it. Yes.
Okay, Matthew.
I can't quite follow. Yeah, I don't have quite the same follow-up after that. It's very nice. I have a Kickstarter actually launching later today with Floodgate Games for a game called Vivid Memories. And also another current Kickstarter, Dice Theme Park. There is actually
what is it called? What is it called?
The first one is called
Memories.
Vivid Memories by Floodgate Games. So the people who did Sagrada and a few other things. So
What's that? Memories.
Vivid, VIVID Memories. Actually, Brett and I also have a game in the Dice Theme Park Kickstarter, which is also current on. We did a Dice Hospital roll and write, or like kind of flip and fill game, which is kind of stealth hidden because you have to scroll down about 90% of the page to even realize it exists and is part of the Kickstarter. But it is there, so if you want to get another game, you can head over to Ellicat Games Dice Theme Park Kickstarter, which is currently ongoing. So we've got a game there too.
And there's one question for Alan. Apparently, Alan at alanpaul.co.uk is a different email to the one on your website. Which one do you prefer?
It all goes to the same place. So yeah, either.
Okay, so you really don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Okay, do you have anything that you want to share?
Well, I've got an exciting meeting about Kingmaker in approximately an hour's time, but I can't say anything about it.
Well,
but it's exciting for me.
I am continuing to stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. UK time. So tonight I am going to be playing Nano Muckle and Micro Muckle, which are super quick, super short. Nano Muckle, I take a long time over playing it on this format because I want to give people time to follow along and play along at home. And so all you need to do if you wish to play is have some paper and something to write with. You could even, although I don't recommend this, if all you had was a bit of lipstick and a wall, you could in theory play it, but that's kind of messing up your wall, so I really wouldn't recommend that. Or if you've got a computer, you could type on, a text editing document. That's also a way you could do it. But anyway, if you want to join that in about 8 hours. And tomorrow I am chatting to Jenham, a lovely musician. We're going to chat about the interaction between creativity, board games, and board game design and composition. Translation is on Thursday with Maisie, who's done some amazing translations. On Friday is the Friendly Friday Forum. Everyone is welcome to join me on camera. And I am going to be specifically talking about pronouns a wee bit on this Friday. I've got a nominal topic, but there's more opportunity to go less discussy and it's more vague, if you know what I mean, than today, than the group chats. And then Yoda, some solo game, Uli from Spielworks next week. And anyway, there's all sorts of things. Check out the calendar if you want to know. Share, spread the word. And let me just check if anyone else has any. Oh, apparently it's May the 4th.
Woo!
Like,
yes!
It's Star Wars Day. I don't get because May the 4th.
May the 4th, you see.
As a May the 4th, yep, I get it. Okay. Best of luck with Kingmaker.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you.
What's his Star Wars? It's an old movie. Yeah, I love that. I love that interaction. It's just, yep, absolutely correct, but totally ignoring any of the significance of anything going on. Let me quickly check out. Okay, even though read it yesterday, if you've enjoyed this, you probably will enjoy Idle Michael. So I am going to raid Idle Michael. Please do the copy paste some or all of that thing. And Idle Michael, who is apparently working on a board game right now, and so you will be able to observe. That is the end of the show. Thank you very much, everyone. Lots of love, and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is... Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Oh. Oh, I just... Sorry. Oh my gosh. Bye, bye. Bye, bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, bye, and bye, bye. And now it's time to go through. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, J Guard. Yes, you did win, I guess, if that was what you were trying to do.
Bye.
Bye, Alex.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Cheap Sheep Games. Bye, with... I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm sure there is a way to inferior pronounce that. But I don't know how to pronounce. Anyway, yep. Lots of love. That is it. Yep. Thank you, everyone,
Hooray.
and bye-bye.
Bye again.
Bye-bye. Bye. Yeah.
Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Bye.
Yeah, it was a lovely chat. Thank you very much. I think I will
Thanks, everybody.
make the intro a wee bit shorter next time. But I look forward to next week. And bye, J Guard. Bye-bye. Again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.